Today's lecture is on cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is the largest part of the brain. Brain, or also called as encephalon, is a massive collection of nervous tissue, and this is divided into folds, also called as convolutions, also called as gyri. 1/3 of surface area of the brain is presented as convolutions or gyri, and 2/3 of the surface area lies in the floor and the walls of the sulci. If you see the weight of the brain, it is around 250 grams in females and 1250 grams in females and 1380 grams in males. The brain forms the 2% of the body weight, and it has a large blood flow of around 800 ml, that is 1/6 of the cardiac output. So large amount of the blood flow, cerebral blood flow is there. The brain contains neurons 7 into 10 raised to power 9. It is said around 10 billion neurons are present. The number of fibers are 200 millions, or around 20 crore fibers, which are incoming or outgoing. Spontaneous activity is present in the brain when the subject is not doing anything. Still some electrical activity is present, that is spontaneous activity. And if you give any stimulus, then that stimulus will produce the evoked electrical activity. It has been this brain has been subdivided into different parts as follows. This brain is divided into forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. Forebrain is also called as prosencephalon. The forebrain is divided again into two, that is telencephalon and diencephalon. Telencephalon includes the two cerebral hemispheres, which are the largest part, and the diencephalon is divided into thalamus, epithalamus, hypothalamus and metathalamus. The first part is thalamus in diencephalon, second is epithalamus. Epithalamus is again divided into pineal body, habenuclear nucleus and habenular striae. Then hypothalamus is there, and the last part in this is metathalamus. This metathalamus is again divided into medial geniculate body and lateral geniculate body. This is then the midbrain or mesencephalon is there. The midbrain consists of crux cerebri, tegmentum and tectum. Then the hindbrain, also called as rhombencephalon, is there. This hindbrain is divided into two parts. One is merencephalon, second is myelencephalon. Merencephalon includes the cerebellum or cerebellar cortex and pons, and the last part, that is myelencephalon, is medulla oblongata. So this brain is divided into forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. The hindbrain includes the pons, cerebellum, medulla oblongata. The midbrain includes the medial and lateral geniculate body. The forebrain includes the telencephalon, that is cerebral hemisphere, and diencephalon, which includes thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus and metathalamus. So first we will start with the telencephalon, that is cerebral hemispheres or cerebral cortex. Now this cerebral cortex forms the cerebral hemisphere, which consists of the double bulkiest portions. Two bulky portions are present in the central nervous system. They almost occupies most of the cranial cavity. They are separated by the longitudinal cerebral fissure. The two individual cerebral hemisphere form the ovoid mass, which is broader behind than in front. They are connected together at the depth of the anteroposterior deep fissure. These two cerebral hemispheres are divided anteriorly and posteriorly on the superficial part by longitudinal anteroposterior deep fissure, but they are connected at the depth of the fissure. The subdivision of this cerebral hemisphere, this is divided into four major lobes, that is frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and there are two main sulci, lateral sulci, which is there between the temporal lobe and frontal lobe, and the central sulci, which is there between the precentral area and the postcentral area. And these two sulci are the important landmark over the surface of the brain. Now in this diagram you can see the bluish anterior part of the brain, which is frontal lobe, which extends from the frontal pole to the central sulcus. Behind the central sulcus you can see the parietal lobe is there with the greenish color, and behind the parietal lobe it is continuous with the occipital lobe, which is showing reddish brown color, and in the lower part you can see the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe is separated from the frontal and parietal lobe by the lateral sulcus. So you can see the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe and temporal lobe, which are the parts of the cerebral cortex. In the frontal lobe, first we take the frontal lobe. On the superior lateral surface, that is upper and lateral surface, you can see the precentral gyrus, superior frontal gyrus, middle frontal gyrus and inferior frontal gyrus. On the orbital surface or the lower surface, the olfactory sulcus is there, which separates the olfactory bulb and olfactory tract. On the medial side of the frontal lobe, the gyrus rectus is there. The remaining portion of the H-shaped sulcus on the orbital side is divided into anterior, posterior, medial and lateral orbital gyri. So on the orbital surface, olfactory bulb and olfactory tract is there. On the medial side, gyrus rectus is there, and the remaining portion is divided by H-shaped sulcus into anterior, posterior, medial and lateral orbital surface or gyri. On the medial surface of the frontal lobe, you can see the inner zone, or that is gyrus cingula is there, and the outer zone, the medial frontal gyrus is there, and the paracentral lobule is there. So on the medial side, gyrus cingula is there. On the outer zone of the medial side, the medial frontal gyrus is there and paracentral lobule is there. Here you can see just in front of the central sulcus, anterior central gyrus is there, precentral gyrus is there, and in front of that, superior, middle and inferior frontal gyri are there. This is on the lateral and superior surface. On the medial surface and the orbital surface, the other gyri are present. Then if you see the parietal lobe, the post-central, behind the post-central, behind the central sulcus, post-central gyrus is there. Behind this post-central gyrus, you can see the parietal area, which is divided into superior and inferior parietal gyrus. The inferior parietal gyrus is again divided into supramarginal and angular gyri. If you see on the medial side, this contains the gyrus cinguli. So this is the parietal lobe. You can see the superior parietal lobule, then inferior parietal lobule. Inferior, it is divided into upper marginal and lower supramarginal and angular gyrus. So supramarginal and angular gyrus are there in the lower part, and on the medial side the singular gyrus is there. Then the temporal lobe is there on the anterior side, separated from the frontal lobe by the lateral sulcus. You can see the superior temporal gyri, medial temporal gyri and inferior temporal gyri. So on the lateral side, anterolateral surface, superior, middle and inferior temporal gyri are there. On the tentorial side, the parahippocampal gyrus is there. On the lateral side, the occipitotemporal gyrus. On the medial side, occipitotemporal gyrus. And the anterior part of parahippocampal gyrus is form a small swelling called as anchors. So temporal lobe on the superior or temporal superolateral surface showing superior temporal gyri, middle temporal gyri, inferior temporal gyri. On the tentorial side there is parahippocampal gyrus which form a swelling in front which is called as uncus. On the lateral and medial side you can see the occipital lobe continuing with this temporal lobe forming the occipitotemporal gyri and lateral and medial occipitotemporal gyri. You can see the superior, middle and inferior temporal gyri on the lateral side in the temporal lobe. In the occipital lobe, there is superior occipital gyri, inferior occipital gyri, and behind the vertical strip of cortex is there which is called as gyrus descendens. On the medial surface there is cuneus in front and lingual gyrus behind. So superior occipital gyri, inferior occipital gyri, small vertical strip behind which is called as gyrus descendens. On the medial side cuneus in front and lingual gyrus behind is there. So this is the anatomical divisions of these lobes. Then the functional areas of the brain. The Brodmann was a scientist. He has done various experiments and he has done the histological features showing the different characteristic features histologically, and he has first divided these different parts of the brain which shows histological different areas, and these are divided into 47 distinct areas identified by the Brodmann, and they are given area number 1, 2, 3 to 47, that is in the numerical figures. This is the photograph of the scientist Brodmann who has identified these areas. So human cortex is divided into 47, or say you can say around 50 distinct areas based on the histological structural differences into numerical areas. Here you can see in front of the central gyrus you can see area 4, 6, 8, in front of that 9, 10 and downside 11 area is there. Behind the central sulcus you can see area 3, 1 and 2, then area 5 and 7. In the occipital lobe you can see the area 17, 18, 19. On the temporal lobe you can see 20, 21, 22, 41, 42, 38. And in the Wernicke's area, that is the sensory area where the parietal, temporal and occipital cortex joined together, there are two areas, that is area 39 and 40. The Broca's area include the area 44 and 45. So depending on the histological structure as well as the cytological structure, and the to them the added is the functional thing. This is the Brodmann distinct areas given by the Brodmann, which are numerically divided. If you see the structure of this cortex, cerebral cortex, 1/12 part, one part only of the 12 part of the cortex, this is the allocortex, which fails to show any laminar arrangement. Most of the cortex is showing laminar arrangement. Only 1/12 of that part is not showing the laminar arrangement, that is allocortex. This allocortex fails to show the organizational grouping and preponderance of any particular type of the cell. And this one part of the cortex out of the 12 part is primitive brain and has less cellular layers. The second part is 11 part out of the 12 part of the cortex show the isocortex. This is new cortex or neopallium. These 11 part of the cortex, of the 12 part of the cortex, this is isocortex, also called as neopallium. This consists of 6 different layers of the cortex. From outermost to inner side, the outermost layer is molecular layer, then outer granular layer is there, pyramidal cell layer is there, then inner granular layer is there, then inner pyramidal cell layer, also called as ganglion cell layer is there, and fusiform cell layer is there. So isocortex, that is 11 out of the 12 part of the cortex, shows the new development, that is neopallium. that consists of different layers, that is arranged into layers from outer to inner side: molecular layer, outer granular layer, pyramidal layer, inner granular layer, inner pyramidal layer, and fusiform layer from outside to inside. If you see the first layer from the outermost, that is molecular layer, this is the most superficial layer, and most of the fibers in this layer are derived from the terminal dendrites of the cells of the deeper structure. So the cells from second, third or fourth layer or deeper layer show the dendrites which are going to the outer layer, that is most superficial layer, that is molecular layer. With the few exceptions, that is some of the Martoni cells are present. The second layer is outer granular layer or external granular layer. This contains the small or rounded polygonal cells. These are sensory cells mainly, and these are densely packed in the layer 2. Dendrites from this layer also pass to the molecular layers. Axon passing to the deeper layer, that is third and fourth layer. Then if you see the third cell layer, that is pyramidal cell layer, this is also known as outer pyramidal cell layer. This consists of outer pyramidal cells. Here the cells are medium sized pyramidal cells and inner larger pyramidal cells. So medium and larger pyramidal cells are present in the third layer. The fourth layer is inner or internal granular cell layer. This resembles the outer granular cell layer but having still more number of fibers, more number of cells, more concentration of the rounded or polygonal cells, granular cells are present in the fourth layer. Fifth layer is the ganglion cell layer, or also called as inner pyramidal cell layer. This contains pyramidal cells of graded size. This layer is well developed in the precentral area, where large or giant pyramidal cells of beds are present. Some of the cells of the Martinotti cells are also present. So large pyramidal cells are present in the ganglionic cell layer or the inner pyramidal cell layer. These cells are more present in the precentral area from where the pyramidal tract arises. Some of the cells of Martinotti are also present. The sixth layer from outside to inside is fusiform layer. This is the deepest layer. The fusiform layer is deepest layer which lies in contact with the white fibers. This contains few of the spindle shaped cells and the few of the stellate cells, and some Martinotti cells are present, but mostly the white cells or white fibers arise from here, that is the axons or dendrons going out or inside. So this is the fusiform layer. This is you can see the Golgi stain and the Wiegert stain and other stain showing the six different layer. The outermost layer is the molecular layer, showing only some of the fibers and only few cells. Second layer from outer side is external granular layer. Small polygonal cells are present or rounded cells are present, which are granular, outer granular layer. Then external pyramidal layer. The pyramidal cells of medium size and large size are present here. Then inside that is fourth, that is inner granular layer, again containing sensory cells, that is polygonal or rounded cells, which are present in the high density here. Then inside that is the fifth layer, that is ganglion cell layer or inner pyramidal cell. This contains very large pyramidal cells of beds, especially in the motor area. Then innermost layer containing few fusiform cells and the fibers are present. This cortex is again divided into different types, that is agranular type, frontal type, parietal type, polar type and granular types. This is type 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. In the agranular cortex type 1, the granular cells are replaced. This are granular, that is granular cells are absent or they are very minimal. The giant bed cells are present dominantly. The large bed cells consisting of 30 to 120 micron in length and 15 to 60 micron in depth are present. This agranular type of the cortex is present in the motor area 4, 6 and 8. Second type is frontal type of the cortex or type 2 cortex. This contains mainly the granular cells, which are triangular in shape. The pyramidal cells are also present. So both granular cells and pyramidal cells are present, but the granular cells are also triangular in shape. This is present in the anterior 2/3 of the frontal lobe, part of parietal lobe, part of temporal lobe. So this is the frontal type of cortex. Parietal type of cortex, type 3 cortex, contains the granular cells which are round. The granular cells are highly dense. The granular cell layer is very much thicker and densely packed cells are present. This area is mainly the sensory area present in the parietal, temporal and occipital lobe. Then the polar type of the cortex, that is type 4 cortex, here the grey matter is very thin, that is about 1 to 1.5 micron in thick. In this all the layers are present, but they are densely packed and very thin cortex is there. This type of the polar cortex is present at both the poles, that is frontal and occipital pole. Then granular type of the cortex or type 5 cortex, granular cells are present. These granular cells are present in a large number and thick layers. The pyramidal cell layer are very thin, or they are minimum pyramidal cells. This granular type of cortex is present in the sensory cortex and the areas which receive the spatial sensations. So all sensory areas may contain these granular tails, which are highly packed cells, and thick layers of the densely packed cells are there. These are the different areas. You can see the motor area, then prefrontal area, then you can see the granular cells or polar cells, different areas. So this diagram showing. Then what is the function of the cerebral cortex? The functional attribute of this laminated cortex is that the outer layer of the cortex is associative and have intellectual faculties. This molecular layer containing mainly the fibers of the different areas of the deeper cells. This is associative area and have the intellectual faculties. In the amnesia, if this is poorly developed, that shows amnesia, and if there is atrophy of this layer, that shows dementia. So decreased intelligence is there. The inner layer shows organic and instinctive faculties. The reception of impulses is there by the sensory cells. The efferent discharges are there by the motor cells. So sensory function, associative functions, motor functions, all are done by the cortex. If you see the primary motor area in the frontal cortex, primary motor area, that is area 4, which is the posterior part of the precentral gyrus. Posterior part of the precentral gyrus, the extent is that this is precentral gyrus. This contains area 4, 4 alpha, 4 gamma and 4s area. 4a area is present, the larger area of area 4 represent the area 4 alpha. A small part at the lower part is 4 gamma layer, and just anterior to area 4 is a small strip of area 4s, which is inhibitive. The characteristic of this area 4 is that this area 4 contains giant pyramidal cells. Large pyramidal cells are present, which are called as cells of Bates cells. The scanty granular cells are very few in number. Area 4s is inhibitory area. This inhibit even the motor signals given by the cortex. Inhibition of this is reflexively induced movement of the cortex by this 4s. The cortical suppressor area, this is also called as cortical suppressor area. Area 4 alpha is 4 gamma is caudally, and Bates cells are present in the fifth layer in the area 4. This area 4 gives rise to the pyramidal cells. Large Bates cells are present, which give rise to the pyramidal tract. Here you can see the central sulcus. Just in front of the central sulcus, primary motor cortex or area 4 is there. Just in front of the area 4 area 6 and 8 are there. In the lower part, light blue color, you can see the Broca's area is there. On the frontal part, lower part, you can see the olfactory bulb and the orbitofrontal cortex is there. Connections of this area 4, the origin of pyramidal tract fibers, and thus the pyramidal tract connect this cerebral cortex to the lower motor neuron. The corticobulbar fibers connect this cerebral cortex, area 4, to the cranial nerve nuclei, and the corticospinal fibers connect these fibers to the anterior horn cells of the spinal cord, that is lower motor neuron. So lower motor neuron of the cranial nerves and the lower motor neuron of the anterior horn cells are connected by this pyramidal tract to the cerebral cortex. Then second is frontopontine fibers. This connect the frontal cortex to the pons. So frontopontine fibers are there. Then intracortical association fibers are there, which connect the cerebral cortex of one side to the another side. So fibers connect to the different areas of the brain on the opposite sides. Then this area 4 is also connected with the basal ganglia, thalamus and reticular formation. The fibers coming from the basal ganglia, thalamus and reticular formation end in the cortex here. And if you give the stimulation, electrical stimulation to this area 4, the small movements are there. The small movements are there because of the muscles. The muscles are, it is said that the muscles are represented individually in the frontal cortex. The topographical representation of the motor cortex, this is similar to the homunculus. The contralateral half of the body is inverted here, and the fingers and thumb show the largest representation. Tongue, jaw and facial movement are represented in the lower part or inferior part. Arm, trunk and leg are represented at the vertex, and foot and perineum are represented in the paracentral lobule. The function of this area 4 is this is the center for voluntary movement or center for volition. This is, you can see the homunculus, the large representation of the hands, fingers, large representation of the tongue, lips, pharynx and larynx. You can see at the vertex or at the topmost part, the hip presentation is there, and if you go from above downwards, the presentation of the hip, trunk, arm and hands is there. Then thumb and fingers are given large representation. Then presentation of the face is there, and in the lowermost part, tongue, larynx, lips and pharynx are given again very large area, because the fine movements of the hand, fine movement of the thumb, fine movement of the lips, tongue, pharynx and larynx to produce the voice, these are given very large representation in the cortex. From above the vertex on the medial side in the paracentral lobule, you can see the below the hip joint, the thigh, the representation of the thigh and knee, lower part of the foot, the urinary bladder reflex, that is micturition reflex, and the defecation reflex or rectal reflex are given here in the paracentral lobule. So representation is from upside down. You can see the knee joint and the legs below the knee joint, and the sacral and micturition reflex and the rectal reflex are represented in the paracentral lobule. The uppermost part in the vertex is represented by the hip, then trunk, arm, hands, then the face is there, and the lowermost part you can see the tongue, larynx, pharynx, lips, etc. The premotor area is the area which is just in front of the area 4, that is area 6. The anterior part of the central area is the premotor area, that is area 6. This consists of post-central, superior, middle and posterior part of the superior, middle and inferior frontal gyri. In the medial frontal gyrus, medial surface area is having synaptic connections with the area 4. This area 6 is connected with the area 4. Some of the axons for the pyramidal tract arise also from the area 6. Major part of the pyramidal tract arise from area 4, but some of the fibers also arise from area 6. This pyramidal tract gives pyramidal fibers. This area 6 gives the extra pyramidal fibers. Structure, if you see the histological structure, that is similar to the area 4, giant large pyramidal cells are present here. If you see the function of this area 4 and 6, this area function of this area 6, this area 6 coordinates the activity of motor cortex. The voluntary muscle movement is there. The movement should be smooth, precise and regular. For smooth, precise and regular movement, coordination is required, and that is given by this area number 6. The example is threading through a needle. For threading through a needle, you have to hold the needle with the one hand with the flexion of the elbow joint, slight extension of the wrist joint, opposition of the fingers and the thumb so as to hold the needle, and this hand should be steady, and through the other hand the thread is taken and that is passed through the head of this needle. So to make this purpose successful is the coordination, and this coordination is the function of this extrapyramidal area 6. So area 6 is the highest cortical center for extrapyramidal system. Structural this area area 6 is, when stimulated, shows the visceral changes. So it is said that the visceral fibers are given from this area 6. Then a strong generation of the movement of the limbs, that limbs, trunk and head is there if you stimulate these areas, and the proximal muscle fibers of the proximal joints are again supplied by this area 6. If you remove the area 4, then these stimuli do not produce any movements. The lesion of this area 6 causes loss of acquired skill. So loss of acquired skill is there because of loss of coordination. The removal of this area causes the increase in muscle tone, forced grasping is there, and exaggerated jerks are there. So if there is occur damage to the area 6 or removal of area 6, that will increase the muscle tone, increase the reflexes, forced grasping is there, exaggerated jerks are there. Gentle grasp movement is there because of area 8, which is just in front of the area 6. The transitional changes are there in the center. This is again extrapyramidal area. The frontal eye field area 6 and 8 both are there. Posterior portion of the middle frontal gyrus. Posterior portion of the middle frontal gyrus, including both area 6 and 8, is the frontal eye field. If you stimulate these areas, that will cause dilatation of the pupil, may cause opening of closing of the upper eyelids, that will cause the conjugate deviation of the eyeball to the opposite sides. So this area 6 and 8 in the medial frontal gyrus is the frontal eye field, and that is that stimulation of this area causes dilatation of pupil, movement of the eyelids and deviation of the eyeballs to the opposite side. The ablation or removal of this area causes the eyeball movement towards the side of lesion. Paralysis of this lesion causes conjugate deviation of the eye movements. Then in the lower part of this motor area, area 44 and 44 are there. This is Broca's center, center for speech, or also called as motor speech center. The area 45 is there in pars triangularis, area 44 is there in pars opercularis. Both of these areas, 44 and 45, Pars upper cularis as well as pars triangularis are there in the inferior frontal gyri, and these areas are responsible for the movement of lips, movement of tongue, movement of larynx, so as the speech is produced. So this is the motor speech center, producing the movement of tongue, lips, larynx, pharynx, so that the speech is produced. If you stimulate this area electrically, that causes the arrest of the speech. That shows that these are concerned with the speech. So these are the area 44 and 45, that is Broca's areas, that is the motor speech center. You can see the lower part, area 44 and 45. Triangular area 45 and rectangular area 44. So this is the Broca's area, that is center for speech.